guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Monday, which means it's time for a 5x5. Now, this is where I take 5 things related to magic. I spend 5 minutes talking about each thing and I move on to the next subject. It's quick, it's snappy, you never know what you're going to get. Now, this week, on this week's 5x5, we've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up, starting off with highlighting to you a kind of an old trick that's been around for years and years and years that I don't see many people doing that's really fun to perform. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on this week, so without further ado, we're going to get into this week's 5x5. So the first thing that I can bring to your attention is a trick that you can buy from Hocus Pocus Magic. Now that's a very popular magic dealer in the UK. There are all of the different magic conventions, and apparently the UK's online magic specialist. Now Dave Charles runs this. The legend that is Dave Charles runs Hocus Pocus Magic. He's an incredible performer. And he had a dealer booth at the IBM convention in Eastbourne, and I picked up this, the crystal car. I actually picked up 2 of them, one for me and one for Ireland. Now, I did this years ago, but it was called the cork winder car. And this is kind of like a version of the cork winder car. You can get it directly from Hocus Pocus, the crystal car. It's really nice because it looks completely see-through. Which is great, and you'll see why in a minute. Now, Dave has kindly put some credits in here. The crystal car is based on Dick Cornwinder's corn winder car, originally sold by Ken Brook, although the operating method is different. And he suggests that we look at Quantam Reetz's corn winder car routine performed on World's Greatest Magic. So there you go. Wanted to bring this to your attention. This is an incredibly commercial trick. And I'll tell you for why. First of all, it's got an interesting hook. You talk about a psychic car. Secondly, the car is completely examinable before and afterwards and during. It's a regular deck of cards. There's not really any tricky sleights. It's a very interesting hook. The only negative is you need a table, but you don't need a close-up pad. You just need a table, so a bar would work, bar surface. I was performing at a close-up gig last night, and there were tables everywhere. Both myself and Ryland have got one of these and have started doing it, and my gosh, it is good. So I want to bring it to your attention, and I'm going to show it to Sarah. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm good.
Good stuff. It's been a while since you've been involved in a 5x5. Have you missed it?
I've missed the magic, yeah.
You've missed the magic. Have you really?
No.
No, I didn't think so. But I'm going to get you to help me with this. We're going to use this car. It's a psychic car. You'll see why. If you were here in front of the camera, I would have you examine this card, have you push it backwards and forwards, and you would realise that it is just a normal card that rolls. It's the sort of thing you get in a toy shop. You could examine it. You can see through it. It's completely see-through. It's crystal. And you would pick a card. So just say stop, Sarah.
Stop.
There you go. That's going to be your card. So I'm going to show you that card. Can you look at it? Remember it?
Yeah.
You got the card?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Very important you remember the card, because if you forget it, it's not that great a trick, to be perfectly honest. So please remember the card. And I'll give the pack a shuffle like this, just to make sure the card's lost, and I'll give them a couple of cuts. So somewhere in this deck is your card. Now, I'm not going to find the card. The psychic card is. And what would happen here is I would take this card, put it at the end of the spread. You would put your finger on it and you would push it gently forward. And what would happen is, as you push it gently forward, you would find that that car will just stop at one point. And it's a really weird feeling that that car can't go any further forward. And you say, well, it's kind of stopped in this area here, which suggests to me that one of these cards is your card. And I know that because the car stopped right there, which means that we don't need these anymore. Now let's do that again, because maybe it was just a fluke and it just stopped there randomly. So we'll do this again. We'll spread the cards out on the table. This time you know exactly what's going to happen. Put your finger on the card, and they do, and I say push it forward and see if it stops. And it does stop right there. Really weird feeling. Very, very strange when this happens. So I think that's probably all of these cards. So we'll get rid of these. We don't really have many cards left, to be honest. We've only got a few. Let me put these over here. So I'll lay these out on the table. We'll put one there, we'll put one there, 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 one there. That wasn't your card, was it, sir? No?
No.
Okay. So, let's try this one more time. We'll start it all the way over here. So once again, the spectator would put their finger on the car, and they would push it forward, and it would stop somewhere. It stopped right there. Right there. So it's not stopped on this card, it's not stopped on this card, or 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 this card. It's stopped right here. Now, if this trick goes wrong, it's not me, it's the psychic card. Sarah, what was the name of your card?
The 7 of spades.
Boom. Proof that the car is psychic. The 7 of spades. So that's the routine. It's called the crystal car. You can get it from Dave at Hocus Pocus Magic. It's a really fun trick to perform. And yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. There you go. It's called the crystal car. You can get it from Hocus Pocus. So I know people on the Q&A and on the 5x5 want more horror stories. I've told so many horror stories about various different gig-related situations I've had during the course of this channel that you guys probably think I suck. But you want more, so I'm going to give you another horror story. And this is kind of an interesting thing that happened to me about 11 or 12 years ago. And this is a booking that I took through an agent, and this agent no longer exists. But this is one of the weirdest gigs I've ever done. So I was hired to do some entertainment for a bride and groom. But I was hired to do entertainment at 7 o'clock in the morning in a hotel room. So the contract came through. I had a phone call from the agents and they were like, hey, can you do some close-up magic for the bride and groom? I'm like, yeah, is it a wedding booking? They were like, no, it's not a wedding booking. The bride and groom are going to be in their hotel room and there's going to be a really nice... it's going to be 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what? And they were like, yeah, they're going to have had breakfast and then we want you to go in and do close-up magic just for them, like an intimate, like formal close-up show. I'm like, really? At 7 in the morning in a hotel room? Yeah, that's what we want. Are you sure about this? Like, yeah, absolutely. It's been booked by the best man. I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? And they were like, well, they want you to perform for an hour. I'm like, okay, so I've got to do an hour for 2 people in their hotel room at 7 o'clock in the morning. And they were like, yeah, that's what we want you to do. I'm like, okay, well, they're paying me. Go on then, why not? So I got to this hotel room at 6:30 in the morning. I got to the hotel at 6:30 in the morning. I always like to get there early, grab myself a drink. And I kind of planned through a 1-hour set. I was thinking, well, if I just do an hour of close-up magic, and I kind of planned a very informal parlor show type thing, but for 2 people, and I planned it so I could work it out in my pocket, so I didn't have to take a table with me or anything. I kind of thought this whole thing through. So just before 7 o'clock, I went and knocked on the door of the hotel room, and nobody answered. I'm like, okay, is this a wind-up? So I knocked again. Eventually, a man came to the hotel room door, and he was obviously hungover, and he was in a dressing gown. He was basically, other than a dressing gown, he was naked. His hair was all over the place, and he's like, "Oh, what do you want? We don't want room service." I'm like, "No, I'm your entertainment. I'm your magician." And I heard the bride going, "Tell him to fuck off." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on here?" He's like, "What do you mean a magician?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been hired by the best man to your wedding to come along and perform magic for you this morning, so that I think this is his gift to you." And he was like, "It's my wedding yesterday. We're both hungover. You've woke us up." I'm like, "Okay, do you want me to go?" And he's like, "Just wait there 1 minute." And I don't know what happened. I'm guessing that he rang up the best man to find out if I was like some sort of weird stalker guy or something. But sort of 5 or 6 minutes later, he came to the door and he's like, "Come in." And he was still in his dressing gown. His missus was still in her dressing gown. She obviously didn't want me to be there. He didn't want me to be there. And I said, "Hey, I can go if you want me to. If you want to go back to sleep or something, that's absolutely fine." He's like, "No, let's get this over with." And then I was like, "Well, I've been booked for an hour." Actually, I said, "Yeah, I've been booked for an hour. I've kind of planned a 1-hour show out for you. Do you want me to do an hour or would you like me to cut it short?" He's like, "No, do the full hour." So I then proceeded to have possibly the most awkward hour of my life, where I'm sitting there in a hotel room with 2 people in their nightgowns, perched on the edge of their bed, still hungover, having just been married the night before. They don't want me there. I really didn't want to be there, but they've said, "No, we'd like you to do the full hour." No reaction. So, like, hey, it was going to be awkward anyway, doing magic for 2 people in a hotel room. But doing 2 people that are hungover in a hotel room where they don't particularly want me there, there must have been about 7 or 8 times in this whole thing where I was like, "Do you want me to carry on?" And they're like, "Yeah, carry on." That nothing I did, the gags weren't landing, the magic I could have floated myself up to the ceiling, spun my head round like the Exorcist, and they wouldn't have given a crap. Like, the whole thing was just so weird. So yeah, I got through to the end, and they were like, thanks, and they shut the door on me, and I left. And to this day, I still think that is one of the weirdest gigs I've ever done. So there you go. That's another kind of a horror story stroke weird gig. Let me know what you think. Do you want to see or hear another horror story? Let me know in the comments. I've got millions of them. I could keep them coming for probably the next year. Okay, so I'm going to give you a sneak peek right now of an interview that's actually going to be airing on Saturday. So on Saturday, on Talk Magic, we're going to have an interview with two people I've actually interviewed on the channel before, Andy Nyman and Preston Nyman. I've interviewed them both individually, both legends in their own respective fields, both incredible, one of the best father and son teams in Magic, really great guys. Andy obviously is an absolute legend, and both of them have carved out an incredibly successful career as actors. But as well as that, they organised the London Magic Convention, and I sat down with them to chat to them about what's happening at the London Magic Convention this year, what's going on, and what the lineup is. And it's very, very exciting. If you don't know, the London Magic Convention is coming on the 6th of November. This interview is dropping on Saturday. So yeah, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of it right now. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, but if you want to check the full interview, it's coming up on Saturday right here. Talk Magic, Magic TV. And honestly, guys, you have a lot to live up to, because a lot of people that I spoke to said that the first London Magic Convention was one of the favorite conventions they've ever been to. And I think part of the reason for that is I think you guys were the first convention in the UK that came back after COVID. And you kind of made that stand, and you were like, you know what? We're going to do this. And it was so wonderful to, after being in a situation where you couldn't even leave your house for the best part of a year or so, we were now seeing old friends and talking at the bar. And it was so respectful the way that you managed to put it all together, and yet kept everyone safe, because at the time, obviously there were still restrictions in place. And
it was a massive event.
Yeah, and it was incredible. I mean, that you put all of that together. And I mentioned Lloyd off camera just before. Me and Lloyd both said on the podcast afterwards, that was incredible. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And you got a lot to live up to, because it was so well received. It really was.
Part of it last year was as a reaction to COVID, and we both definitely for years have missed the international convention in November. So we'd always thought about it, but COVID really was like, there are no conventions and we want to do something nice and get people in a room or whatever, so let's do it. But part of it, I suppose, was not in a bad way, but naivety, because it wasn't an event that existed pre-COVID. I think maybe if it existed pre-COVID, we'd have weighed up the risks a bit more and gone, financially, is it viable, or can we actually do but because we'd never done it before and just had the brain to do it because of being locked in the house, I think that it just came together really nicely, because we didn't ever really stop to think about, is this the right idea? And having it as this year is not masked because the world's changed, but at the time, because things were bumpy, it was very respectful and masked or whatever.
It was also a real reaction to, we just, as do, I have no doubt, every one of your watchers, we just adore Magic. We love it. We love the world of it. We're obsessed with it. We love how much of a laugh it is, the friends you make, the community of it. And also our convention was a reaction to how toxic all the online stuff had become. At the circle, a lot of the I mean, I'm not on Facebook, but Preston would tell me often about the Facebook stuff that was kicking off. And it was just so ugly. And it just felt like we just want to try and not remind everybody, aren't we clever, but just reinvigorate the fact that it's just tricks. And it's really such fun and such a laugh to be together. And one of the things we'd always loved so much about Macmillan's was it just never felt corporate. It just felt like this is a family thing, and that's that. They really set the benchmark for us. So that was also a part of it.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think, talking about Macmillan's, Ron's Day, I think that there's been a hole in in the magic calendar since they stopped doing it. I know you've got the session in London, but for me, the session is a very completely different thing. It works, it has its fan base, but the London Magic Convention, it feels very much like a love letter to Macmillan's in many ways, because I think you've taken elements of that, added your own stuff as well, and I think we needed something like this.
But I think that was also part of the conversations last year, and but this year we're in a much bigger venue, so part of like upgrading the convention was also about having these conversations. The session, completely different thing, and it's so polished and so it's such a great weekend that there's no point trying to do what they do, because they've got it down to such a T. Likewise, Blackpool, there's no point trying to replicate what Blackpool do in terms of the scale and the atmosphere, because it's only ever going to be not as good as the session or not as good as Blackpool. So then it just forces you to try and do a different thing. And I think the thing that we really, part of our worry maybe about not upgrading, but going into a bigger venue was, will it have the same atmosphere? Last year was one room, the dealers, the lecture, everything was one room, and it was so buzzy and so fun. And part of our thing was, if we go into a bigger room and the dealers hall is separate to the lectures and it's a big theatre, it's a lovely Victorian theatre that we're in, will it kill the atmosphere? But we're leading with with such fun and such love of magic that
the honest to God truth is, we don't know yet. It'd be lying if we said it's going to be as good. We don't know. I mean, the lecturers, we've got brilliant. We've got Richard Wiseman.
I'm going to break these down in a minute. Yeah, you've got.
Yeah, I will let you do it. And we've got 2 international lecturers. So not only have we lectured and expanded, it's cost us a load of our own money.
It's a big risk.
Yeah, but also the venue may not work. We may think, it wasn't as good, but also it might just be. It is a risk, but that's part of the joy of it.
Okay, I want to talk to you about a trick that is as old as the hills right now. This trick is as old as the hills. But you know what? It may be old, but it's incredibly good. And I don't know if you can get them anymore. I've got 2 or 3 of these. I'm not sure if you can get them. I hope you still can. This was marketed many years ago by Andy Clockwise. Now, if you don't know who Andy Clockwise is an incredibly successful performer over here in the UK. He is, I think, a 2-time Family Entertainer of the Year, which is an incredibly difficult competition to win. He's a close-up magician, he's a stage magician, but as well as that, he's marketed various different bits and bobs throughout the years. And although a lot of his stuff doesn't go through Murphy's, you have to get it directly from him. It's very, very clever, and I can think of like multiple things. He's got a really nice Rubik's Cube paddle, which is amazing. But anyway, this is called Checkmate by Andy Gladwin. And I used to use this. Did I say Andy Gladwin? Sarah's mouthing at me behind the camera. I'm having a bad day today. When I say Andy Gladwin, I mean Andy Clockwise. Please forgive me. She's now shaking her head at me behind the camera. I'm terrible. Yeah. So this was an opener for me when I was doing restaurants. And a lot of times on this channel, I have people say to me, what sort of stuff works well at restaurants. Now, I stopped doing this when I stopped doing restaurants many, many years ago. But you know what? This is perfect for a restaurant worker. It's perfect for any close-up worker, to be honest. And I was kind of thinking, would it still work these days? Would this trick, I'll show you in a second, but would this trick still work these days? And I think it would. I absolutely think it would. Even though we don't really use checks much these days, and even though we don't carry checkbooks around, we still know what checkbooks are. We still have them. Me and Sarah have both got checkbooks. Don't use them very often, but when Ryland's mom was still, when Ryland's nan, Sarah's mom, was still alive, she used to send checks through the post every single year for Ryland's birthday. So you still see checks. I think people know what they are. And the trick in question is this. So you just bring out a checkbook, and you say, have you ever seen one of these before? This is a checkbook. I'm sure you guys all know what one of these is, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a normal checkbook. This is a magic checkbook. And the reason I know it's a magic checkbook is because you can use it to do magic. You see, if you wanted to use a normal checkbook, what you'd do if you wanted to give people money, you'd have to take a check, you'd have to write down the person that you want to give the money to, write down how much money, sign the check, give it to them. They then have to go into the bank. They have to actually pay the check, and you wait a few days for it to clear. As long as the money's in your bank account, you end up giving them the money. It's quite a long process. Luckily, as a magician, I can actually speed that process up. So let's say I wanted to give somebody £20 or even £100. Well, all I'd do is I'd just snap my fingers. And when I do, I'd have that money. Look, there's a £20 note, £40 note, £60 note, £80 note. Let's say I wanted to give somebody some money in Europe, because let's say I'm traveling in Europe. There you go, no problem. I can make euros appear. Let's say I'm traveling in America. That's not a problem. I can make 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 dollars appear. So now I can just tear one of these $100 bills off and give it to you, and you can use that and you can spend it. So next time you need money, you don't need a checkbook. You just need to learn how to do magic, and that is why I became a magician. And it's obviously, anybody who's watching this will know the principle at work here. It's a very clever use of the Svengali principle, but built into a checkbook. And it's got, I'm telling you right now, as a very quick bit when you walk over to somebody and you show that you've got a checkbook and then you've got money, it's a really strong opener. I've talked about openers on this channel before and how an opener should be visible, it should establish credibility, it should be something that you can, it's something different to a card trick. Well, this is actually a perfect opener. It really is. And if Andy's watching this and he doesn't make these anymore, I really suggest that you do, because this is just as relevant and as good now as it was back then. And what I used to do with it is I used to have a loose check in the back. So I used to have a loose check in the back that I could tear out. So I'd make the money and then one check wouldn't print, and I'd tear that check out, and then I'd do a $100 bill switch with a £50 note, and I'd turn it into a 50, and then I'd turn it back into a check. So there's a lot you can actually do with this. There really is. It's a super visual trick. It's a great opener. It's perfect for restaurant workers. So if you're looking for a nice fun bit that you can do, go check out Checkmate by Andy Gladwin. It's super fun. Okay, I wanted to do a mini book review for you guys today, and this is available from Orion Magic. Now, if you don't know Orion Magic, I chatted with Perseus, I always get the surname wrong, Perseus Arkomanis. I did a talk magic with him about sort of 8 or 9 months ago. He's had an incredible career. He started off releasing magic many, many years ago. He's a very engaging performer. He's worked with Illusionist. He's worked with Penguin. He now runs Orion Magic Productions and has worked with people like Eric Stevens. He's worked with people like Alan Rorison. And yeah, he's incredible. If you saw my live debate with Aaron Ducker and Perseus, that's Perseus right there. He's a really stand-up guy. And I wanted to give a shout out to Perseus because this book is incredible. Now, Eric Stevens wrote this book, I believe. And this book is great. It's not just a collection of tricks. Now, to be clear, there are some great tricks in this book. Perseus is an incredible performer. Anyone who's seen the Medusa Project or Bottled or anything like that is brought out through Orion will know that he's an incredible performer. And the tricks in this book are great. They're well written, they're well explained, they're well illustrated. This book is awesome. However, beyond that, Perseus is a very wise person. And the theory in this book, and there are chapters dedicated to theory, are just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There's a quote on the back which is awesome, and it's a quote from Perseus. "I've learned that people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel." It's so true. People never forget how you made them feel. Now, one thing that I hear all of the time on this channel, people want to hear more about scripting. How do you script? Why do you script? What should you script? And I'm not brilliant at scripting. I do write scripts for Ryland, but my own show a lot of the time is unscripted because I like to be off the cuff. And Perseus spends a long time talking about scripting. He actually says here, there's a great misconception that scripting magic equals storytelling, and that's not the case. Scripting magic is a lot of different things woven together. It's actually preparing what you will say, how you're going to say it, when you're going to say it, and why you're going to say it. It's the words we actually say, the moves we make, the design of the effect, and the ideas it expresses. In this book, I will focus mostly on the part played by the words themselves, but to be honest, it never simply stays only there. And then he goes goes into so much advice on scripting. So if you're somebody who's wrote into the channel wanting information of scripting, then this is a book that you really want to get. And he talks about where to begin. He always asks himself the same questions before he creates any piece. What's it about? Why should the audience care? Why should I care? Then he talks about how to script it. There are 2 ways to script magic. Find a subject and then try to find an effect that fits it. You'll find an effect and then try to find a subject that fits it. Common problems with scripting. And he talks about subtitling. He talks about so many different things. And then tips and tricks on scripting. Holding your breath, remembering me. So many different things that I'm not going to talk into now. But this is, I just wanted to give a shout out to Perseus. This is a fantastic book. It really is. It gets 100%. It's one of the best magic books I've read, because it's not just about the tricks. As I say, although the tricks are great, it's not just about the tricks. It's about his theory on magic, and it's about his theory on scripting. So if you're somebody who's wanting to spend more time learning about scripting, then this is a book that you absolutely should get. You can get it from most magic dealers stock it, but you can get it directly from Perseus at Orion Magic Productions, and you can support the creator. So there you go. So there you go, guys. That's another 5x5 in the bag. Thank you once again for joining me right here on Magic TV. Don't forget, if you want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. And if you haven't already done so, go to www.thenettricks.com. It is the #1 magical streaming platform on the internet. I work very, very hard every single day to make sure it's perfect. And very soon we're uploading another 5 tricks, and there's almost 200 up there already. So go check it out, see what all the fuss is about. I'll be back again tomorrow with another video. I'll see you then.